comfortable seated position, whatever that looks like for you. Crown of the head reaching up to the sky. If you need to sit on props, create space around the hips. The main focus, just getting a nice stacked vertebrae, creating space to lift up through the spine, crown of the head reaching up. So if you need to sit on a block or bolster, you can be cross-legged, you can straddle with a bolster or block, you can straighten the legs out in front if you wish. Just creating space around the hips, nice length through the spine, just relaxing into the shoulders, just relaxing into the belly, softening into the jaw, softening around the eyes. Generally palms face down for Yin Yoga, so nice grounding energy. Always an option for index finger and thumb tip together for Chin Mudra. It's creating a nice energetic seal through the body. And this particular mudra helps balance out mental activity. Just taking a moment just to arrive in the room. Just letting go of the day. Letting go of the week. Just taking a moment just to settle into each other's energies. Our hearts are kicking out an electromagnetic field, our aura, our morphic field. We're all interacting with each other at the moment. Our energies are all overlapping, all interlacing. So just taking a moment just to settle into that energy. Can feel different when we walk into new spaces, different spaces. Just taking a nice steady inhale in through the nose, just expanding your lungs to your capacity. Nice releasing sigh out through the mouth, releasing any mental tension. Have a nice deep inhale in through the nose, just expanding and filling your lungs. And just releasing sigh, just releasing any emotional tension. One more nice deep inhale in through the nose. Nice releasing sigh out through the mouth. Releasing any physical tension. Just surrendering control of the breath. Just allowing the awareness just to soften into the sensations in and around the nose. Just the nostrils, we feel the air moving. We feel the air moving around into the sinuses, 5 sinuses around the nose. Even in the upper mouth, the roof of the mouth, there's a palatine sinus. The side of the nose, just above the frontal sinus, just above the nose, between the eyebrow. On the bridge of the nose and just behind the nose there's another. Used to be known as the 5 stars of the microcosm. Where the ancients are said to have picked up on the first kind of hint of pranic energy, information in that ether. Spiritual information that they used to collect through breath, pranic energy, the life force. The senses have been dumbed down over the centuries. The atmosphere's changed. We're more reliant on physical sensation and senses nowadays. Just exploring, the breath still moves around, the sinuses are still in use. We undoubtedly still have the ability. We've just forgotten how to tune into it. Everything comes from awareness. You start to bring awareness to these things through knowledge, through connection. You may just be able to remember and start to tune back into these abilities that we used to have. Just tracing the airflow through the airways in and out of the throat, just exploring any differences between the in and the out breath. Explore as the sensations change as the breath enters from the throat into the torso, and the torso back into the throat. If the sensations change, whereabouts do they change? How do they change? Mainly just preparing the mind for the practice, tuning it into the body. Just taking the awareness up to the top of the head. We're just going to allow the awareness just to filter down through the body, over the body, around the body, just checking in with sensations, much like we did with the breath. Observing any tension that we're holding in and around the face, the neck, the shoulders, any softness, energetically, physically, mentally, potentially emotionally here. Just bring acceptance to how you're feeling. There's no right or wrong way to feel. Being here in this human experience, we're exposed to all of the feelings, all of the sensations, high and low. It's just about finding the middle ground, allowing the experience to pass, being aware of what's happening as it does, being aware of our reactions to these experiences. Without judgment. Observing patterns, repeating patterns, that we keep finding ourselves in certain situations. Do our behaviours lead us there? Do our allowance of other people's behaviours lead us there? Are there lessons in these experiences? Without awareness, we'll never know. Just bringing awareness into any aches or pains, niggles or knocks you might be carrying this evening. Again, releasing any judgment, releasing any expectation of thinking you should feel tippity-top. Just allowing yourself to ache if you need to. Just bringing awareness to it so we can move through the practice with this awareness, so we can use props without our ego getting in the way. We can support the body in healthy ways to deepen or enhance the pose. Knowing where we can soften and relax completely, knowing where we need to support the body for our highest benefit. Because this is your practice, they are your bodies. You didn't come for me, you didn't come for the person next to you, so just tune into you. Explore your body. Support it where it needs support. Release it where it needs release. Bringing the hands to heart center. Lowering the chin down to the chest. And namaste. We are going to come off any blocks, come off any supports. You're going to take that right leg off out the way, off to the right side of the body. So we've got a nice line from the left hip through the right hip to the right knee. We've got the left knee directly in front of the left hip. So we've got nice 90-degree angles at our knees. And our shin is square to the top of the mat. Our hips are square to the top of the mat. Nice deer pose. We're going to drop either towards the floor. That deepens the pose. And or towards the foot. So you could be up on your hands leaning towards the foot. You could be on your elbows halfway between. You could be anywhere really. Just tune in. Just go to a point that is accessible to you. Getting to the floor doesn't necessarily mean you're deeper into the pose. You can keep your arms straight. You can take the arms out. Just soften into the shoulders. Let the chest drop down. Relax into the neck if that's available to you. Aiming to get into that left hip, in and around the left thigh. And it can quite literally be anywhere around that left thigh. If it's coming from the hip, it'd probably go down the outside of the thigh to the knee. Maybe beyond that knee into the lower leg a little bit. I want to be mindful of the knees here, any sharp kind of stabbing sensations, electrical shock kind of sensations anywhere through the body at any point during the practice. Just ease off a little bit, come out. You have sensations on the outside of the hip, the outside of the thigh. It could be activating the gallbladder meridian channel. Helps us with our courage, with our initiative. It's good for creativity. It kind of clears space in the brain. We're not second guessing. We haven't got that brain fog of keep going around in circles thinking we've upset somebody or done something wrong. We can analyze the day, go back through the day when we sit into bed, lay into bed or meditate. But we don't get lost in that analysis. We kind of realize that, yeah, okay, I did good decisions today. I did a couple of bad decisions. I can come back to them tomorrow and I can deal with them. You don't get lost in the myriad of thoughts and confusion. And when we have space in our energy body, our mental body, our emotional body, that's when creativity can move into that space. I've been told that worry is a waste of imagination. Gallbladder meridian channel also helps with insomnia. Again, much easier to drift off to sleep when you have a clearer mind. If you do wake up in the middle of the night, you don't suddenly get that rush of panic and the thought, the brain floods with all these thoughts. You might be feeling it more into the sit bone. Maybe moving down through the back of the leg in the hamstring. More getting into the bladder meridian channel. Good for optimism. When we're optimistic, we have a better outlook of the future before it comes, so that helps us become calmer and more peaceful. Nice and gently, Peeling away from the floor, moving the body off to the left side. I just say that because it creates space to bring that right foot forward. Just walk the hands back a little bit, maybe just unravel the legs. Just nice awareness even as we transition. Maybe a little jiggle of the knees, a little wave of the feet. But nice awareness into the hips, into the thighs. Any difference that you can be aware of between the left and right? Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. Moving the body off round to the right side. Take that left leg out of the way. Right hip, left knee. Nice straight line across the mat. Right knee in front of the right hip. Then right angles at both knees. And explore what variation you're in. You can either just go straight to the floor, or you can move towards that foot, or you can do a combination of the two, finding that space. Like one of those little color charts you get on the computers with the cursor, and you just move the cursor around that color chart, looking for the right color, which you can never find. Softening into the hips, softening into the thighs, even relax the belly where we can. If you're using the arms for stability, try and soften into the shoulders to allow the chest and the belly to fall towards the floor. Keep your mind swimming around the body. Although the body's softening and melting away, we want to keep our mind sharp and active. If it's too much on the neck, you can put a block or something underneath the forehead. Your arm's not quite on the floor, you can put a block underneath the elbow. Props are our friend. Really nice for balancing out the hips, this pose. We've got external rotation of the right hip, so that front leg is an external rotation. The leg off to the side is internal rotation. So between the two sides, we get a nice balance. Mobility into the hip. Keeping the awareness moving around the body to explore points of resistance. There might be contraction in some muscles, even tiny little stabilizing muscles around the hips, around the belly. As you move away from that area, they engage, and when you come back, they release. Part of the practice. Using the brain to focus on the body keeps the mind present and attentive. Just like tension creeps into the body without us realizing, thoughts creep into the brain without us realizing. Part of the practice. Acknowledge any thoughts when you realize you've wandered off. Meet them with a little smile. Release attachment to the thought. Come back to your body. Come back to the live sensations. That's the practice. Nice and gently peeling away from the floor again, just moving off to the right side. Just create space for that left hip and left leg to bring round. There's no rush coming in and out of these poses. I talk a little bit quicker just to stay ahead of the game, ahead of the curve. Unraveling the legs, maybe taking the hands back, maybe dropping the head back if you want a little counter stretch for the neck. Just be mindful and aware as always. A little jiggle of the knees if it feels good, maybe a little wave of the feet. Yeah. When you're ready. Nice little rebound, so just releasing the spine down to the floor. Nice anatomical position. Little space between the feet, little space between the hands and the body. Other positions are available if you need to, if you've got contraindications around the spine or the hips or something. You're more than welcome to adapt the rebound. Chance to allow the body just to reset and come back to its original form and shape. Freshly nourished, freshly hydrated. You've got an option to observe the body with the mind, or you've got an option to unplug and release attachment to sensation, release attachment to thought. Trying to find that little space between spaces where pure consciousness resides. Bringing the awareness back to the body. Just going to walk the feet back towards the bum. And I'm going to demonstrate with a bolster, but you're more than welcome to use a block or a couple of blocks. We're going to lift the hips, pressing into the feet, lift the hips, slide whatever support it is underneath the hip bone. So upper bum and lower back. It's kind of bridged here, supported here. What we really need to be aware of is when we walk the feet away, just do it mindfully, because you're going to get lumbar compression, okay? That's going to dictate how deep into this pose you go is your lower back. If there is sharp shooting pains in the lower back, walk the feet back in, remove the bolster, drop into a lower level of support, then a block. If there are no sensations in the lower back, you can go as deep as you want into this pose technically. Option to take the arms out to a T, opening up through the chest and the shoulders. Option to sweep the arms up overhead, if your shoulders allow. Again, no right or wrong, no shoulds or musts. Just go to a point that's accessible to you, and if you're, say, put your arms over your head and then you relax the shoulders and the arms want to drop out to the side, then just allow the arms to drop out to the side. Dropping the awareness into the body. Rinse and repeat. That's the practice. Focus with concentration is the practice before meditation, which is focus without concentration. That's the discipline we're kind of instilling in this practice, Yin Yoga or any yoga practice, that mindful movement, using the body and the breath, particularly the body in Yin. I'm not worried about the breath. We can observe its effects on the pose. We can observe the pose's effect on our breathing. I'm not too worried about controlling the breath in Yin Yoga. I see it as a practice of surrender and a practice of exploration. Less control, more experience. Literally for the sake of experience. It's opening through the front of the body. The stomach meridian channel running down from the face. I'm just giving rough paths. Centrally down through the chest, down through the abdominal muscles, kind of gets to the front of the hips and branches out to the middle of the hips and moves down the front of the thighs, all the way down the front of the leg to the second toe. Where it bridges into the big toe and picks up the spleen meridian channel, which runs up the front inside edge of the foot, ankle and leg. Again, when it gets to the front of the hips, it crosses across to the front outside edge of the hips and runs up around the outside of the belly, the outside of the breast and up into the armpits. So depending on your arm position, maybe activation stretch into the armpits, but also the hip flexors, belly, thighs. Opening up and activating the myofascia through these areas. Both are associated with openness, open-mindedness, open to change, open to opinion, open to processes. The stomach meridian channel leans more towards being more open and caring. The spleen meridian channel leans more towards self-esteem. But if we do become more caring, then it kind of makes sense that we're going to have a higher self-esteem. If we're more open to accept ourselves the way we are, rather than allowing external or even internal judgment to cloud our view of ourselves. That openness kind of comes into that realm as well. Stomach meridian channel is associated with digestion as well, as you'd expect, that physical digestion, but also the processing, digestion of thoughts, of emotions. We can process those patterns that we start to find in our lives, behavioural. So gently walking the feet back towards the bum. Bringing the arms down the side of the body. Just pressing into the feet just enough to remove the supports out from underneath the hips. Mindfully bringing the knees in towards the body. Maybe you're keeping the tailbone pressing down into the floor. You can just circle the knees a little bit to release the lower back if you want, and the hips. If you know your back and you know your body well and it's okay, you can bring the knees into the body, give yourself a nice hug, a squeeze. You can even round into the back if you know your spine is okay. All with awareness. But these transitions, they're all yours. You can do whatever you want in these transitions. It's really intuitive and self-empowering, getting into your body, listening to what it's asking of you and applying it accordingly. When you're ready, finding your way into your rebound pose, nice anatomical position. Chance of surrender, a chance of release, a chance of absorption, if you will. Again, that processing mentally, emotionally, energetically, physically. Not something you need to think about in this. Just let the body do it. Let your energy body do it. your awareness back to the body. Going to roll off to the left side. Find your way up to your bum. It's an option to turn sideways on your mat if you wish. A little support underneath the ankles if that feels good to you. You don't have to. Legs nice and wide. If you know you've got tight hips and tight hamstrings, you might find it difficult to lean forward here. You can sit off the front edge of a block. So one of these thinner blocks is really good. Just perching the bum off the front edge of that helps anteriorly tip the pelvis forward, gives you a little bit more maneuver. I always talk about stiffness in this pose, but there is also the other one. If you're super supple and super bendy, then you need to also protect yourself from overstretching. There is always that instant, so always awareness. You do have people that are hypermobile and it can put too much strain on the sockets. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't do Yin Yoga, but it's just bringing a little bit of awareness into the practice to support so you're not overstretching the tissue. But you can always bring supports underneath the arms, so you can bring the floor closer towards the body as well. I do see people sometimes snap the bolster underneath the chin to support the neck a little bit. I am an advocate of surrender as much as you can. Surrender, let the body weight do what it needs to do. But if you do have contraindications, of course, just support to take the tension off. If we're too deep into the pose and the body's fighting and resisting, then we're losing the magic of the pose. So that's where supportive props come into play. You lift the body away from the floor, create that cushion for it to rest into, so we can still feel tension into the pose, but we're able to release and relax into that tension, and then the body's more likely to soften deeper and deeper, and then maybe we can start to move props out the way as we soften closer and closer. But if we're too deep into the pose too soon, the body just tightens up and it resists, and we're not going to start to release and open up into the practice. Again, comes back to awareness. Release the ego. Release comparison. Good. Every body is different. Every body is different. So find your practice. Really good open release of the bladder meridian channel. Starts in the inner aspect of each eye and moves up into the forehead. Splits into a further 2 channels, runs up either side of the central line of the skull and down the back of the neck. Either side of the vertebrae has 2 channels either side, down through the sit bones, back of the thighs. The 2 channels rejoin into a single channel at the back of the knee, and they continue down the back of the leg and end in the little toe. Any release or stretch or tension through those areas, nice for the bladder meridian channel. Again, that optimism, that calm and peace that we touched on earlier. Inner thighs might be screaming at you a little bit here, the inside of the knees, be mindful there. Always bring the feet a little bit close together if it's too much on the inside of the knees. Nice liver meridian channel activation up the inside of the thighs, good for kindness and generosity. So we've got the kidney meridian channel being activated for rationality and perception. You might notice it in the lower back as well, around the kidneys, as well as the inside of the legs and thighs and groin. Got a connection to the heart as well, so it brings in a little bit of wisdom into that channel, into that energy. Really good for reducing fear. Really, really good for reducing anxiety, that rationality, that perception. When we keep our kidneys regulated, it helps regulate our adrenal glands, which are seated on top of the kidneys. So our cortisol release, our stress response, that fear fires up. We get the stress response, gets us into our sympathetic nervous system. So regulating the kidneys with rationality, perception, and wisdom helps regulate that fear response. Really good against anxiety. Works well together with the bladder meridian channel running down also more centrally in the mid-lower back. Again, that calm and peacefulness that comes with optimism. And the rationality and perception help with optimism too. Nice and gently feeling away from the floor, walking the hands back, coming up to sit. Be mindful of the spine, of the neck. You can remove any supports from the front. Again, I'm just staying ahead of the curve. Maybe just literally using the hands as well to drag the legs back together. Might be nice taking the hands back. Be mindful as you take the head back, little counter stretch for the neck, and it's quite nice to swiping the knees left to right, releasing the thighs. Awareness in the body as we release the hips, and maybe even into the lower back here. Always awareness, even in our transitions. Again, if you want to do something completely different to what I'm showing, feel free. It's your body. It's your practice. Tune in. When you're ready, just sliding the feet away from the body, releasing the spine down to the floor. Release the neck and the shoulders. Nice anatomical position or your variation thereof. Releasing attachment. Allowing your little raindrop of consciousness to return to that vast ocean of consciousness, of which we are all a part of. Whether we feel it or not, we are. It's a home of eternal peace and eternal wisdom. And we do have access to it. We retrain or remember mindfulness and breathwork technique. Open doors, changes our frequencies. Melt away. Bringing the awareness. Rolling off to the left side. Going to stay on the left side this time. That left side of the body is the yin side, it's the feminine energy. Bringing the knees up in line with the hips. A nice right angle at the hips, right angle at the knees. You might want to grab your bolster actually, it's a good point. Thank you, Dawn. Putting a bolster on the outside of the knees just helps keep the knees together without engaging those hip stabilizers around the hips and thighs. Shuffle that left shoulder forward to encourage a twist through the spine, and it helps create space to release the right arm off to the right side. So arms out to a T. You can have blocks underneath the upper arm. You can put blocks between the arm and the body. Stop the arm sliding back towards the body. Just a little bit then around there. The nice right angles at the hips and the knees helps deepen the twist or stretch to the outside of the right hip. Deepens the twist around the waist, front, sides and back. Can get up into the ribs quite nicely. And it also kind of deepens the stretch into that right shoulder, into the right pectoral, into the right bicep, moving down that right arm. Quite nice if that arm does hang in the air, because again it deepens the stretch into the chest, into the shoulder. So if it is, just try and soften into it. Just exploring any epicenters of sensation that might be greater than others. Take your awareness into these spots. There may be one, there may be a few. Allow the awareness just to radiate out away from these areas, through the body. And although the body's softening and melting away, we want to keep our brain and our mind focused, attentive, aware, present. Yoga means to yoke, to bond, to unite. So we want that connection of mind and body. Again, you can observe the breath here if you want to, how it affects the pose. And maybe how the pose affects the breath. If it restricts it a little bit, how does that affect our energy? Some poses can be quite triggering. You might get anxious in poses. You might feel a little bit stuck in poses. You might feel uncomfortable. You might feel bored in poses. And we want to observe these things without attachment. Again, it's okay to be bored. It's okay to be annoyed. It's okay to be happy. It's okay to be sad. Observe what comes up without judgment, without expectation. And just allow your frequencies to move, to change. That's all emotions are, it's just change of frequencies. You notice it if you're feeling low, if you're feeling sad, if you're depressed, unhappy in any way, grieving. Your body's heavy. It's a dense energy. You can't move, you don't want to move, you can't think, it's all clouded, it's all dense, it's all foggy. When you are happy, when you're in love, when things are going right and so you've got really good news, you get bubbly, you get fizzy, you get excited, there's a spring in your step, your clarity of thought is through the roof, you can just see things clearly and everything goes right and you feel energized, you feel lighter in the body. We all feel it. We all experience it. We just separate that frequency from emotion. You can cut an atmosphere with a knife in a room. That's people's energies. That's what we interact with. That's our first point of connection, our heart's electromagnetic field. You get bad vibes off people you're not sure about. You get good vibes off people you can't. Like, every time you're near them, you're just really excited because they just got really good energy. That's what we're picking up on. That's our first point of communication. That's our first language. That's what we react to. That's what we respond to. Nice and gently bringing the right arm up and over, releasing the twist from the spine. Working your way around onto your back. And all the way over to the right side. Again, finding those right angles at the hips and at the knees deepens the stretch across the outside of the hip, around the waist and into that left shoulder this time. You can use the weight of a bolster on the outside of the knees if you want to. Again, have to. A little bit more. Relax into the neck. You've got an option to roll the head off to the left side if you want, but relax the neck. If it wants to come back to center, let it come back to center. There's all sorts of magic happening in this pose. I do bang on about it pretty much every week, but it's like, probably if I had to have a favorite pose, this would be it, just for its benefits. Physical, mental, emotional, regulates your hormones, regulates your nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic, will help regulate the polyvagal system, like the traffic light system of nervous system. So red is like freeze, fright and freeze. And the green is just nice and open, nice and relaxed. It helps with our social kind of interactions. If you're more into the red and amber kind of phase, you're going to be more closed off, less likely to be social, less likely to be explorative and chatty. If you're more towards the green, yellow and green end of the zone, you're going to be more open, because when we're calm and when we're relaxed, when we feel safe, that's the thing, the safety comes into it. And you let your guard down. You're just open, you're approachable, you can approach people without fear. So it's the polyvagal theory around the nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, so the fight or flight versus the rest of them to digest. This pose activates the vagal nervous system, which stimulates and raises the vagal tone, which releases chemicals into the brain, serotonin for joy and happiness. In extreme cases, euphoria is probably where the state of samadhi comes from, if you get to that point, which is the 8th limb of yoga, the pinnacle of what we aim for as yogis. That connection to source, complete, unfiltered. It releases oxytocin as well into the system, which is commonly known as the love chemical. It's more of an aphrodisiac, to be honest with you, but more recent research has also linked it to being an endocrine gland, so helping with regulation of our hormones. Regulation of our nervous system helps regulate our heart rate, helps regulate our blood pressure, helps regulate our breathing. With all that regulated, it helps our mind settle. That cognitive functions not through the roof. We're not overthinking. We're not churning through everything. It helps settle our overthinking state. Nice and gently bringing that left arm up and over, releasing the twist from the spine. Removing any props, any support. Moving your way around onto your back. Might be nice to have a little stretch, tips of fingers down to tips of toes. It might be nice to bring the knees into the body, give yourself a little hug, a little squeeze. Might be nice to do a bit of both. And when you're ready, feet to the end of the mat. A little space between the feet. A little space between the hands and the body. If anybody wants a blanket, raise a hand. I can get a blanket over you. Little space between the feet, little space between the hands and the body. Adjusting the hips, adjusting the shoulders. A little wiggle of the toes, gentle release of the fingers. Maybe a little wiggle of the jaw. Softening the muscles around the eyes, across the forehead. As the body softens and melts away. Just allowing your mind to go. Allowing your thoughts to simply evaporate. to the body. Get a nice deep inhale in through the nose. Let's release inside, out through the mouth. Giving the toes and the fingers a nice gentle wiggle. Allowing the head to roll off to the left. Bring it back to center. Over to the right. It comes back to the middle. Take a nice inhale. Stretch the arms up overhead, taking a nice long stretch. Tips of fingers all the way down to tips of toes. Stretch, stretch. Place the right hand on the belly as you bring the right knee in towards the body and roll off to the left side. And just taking a moment on the side. Coming back to the body. Coming back to your breath. Coming back to the awareness. Tuning into that shared energy in the room. Finding your way back into the space. And just keeping your eyes closed, finding your way up to a comfortable seated position. Hands to heart center. Down your bed. Thank you. Thank you. And before Lucy throws something at me, there's a day retreat here on the 6th of July, which I'm running. The vinyasa kind of hatha flow in the morning, either here or by the lake, depending on the weather, which is going to be sunny. It's going to be sunny, 6th of July. We're going to have a bit of lunch, probably a picnic by the lake as well. And then we're going to do some forest bathing with Elizabeth as we make our way up to another lake where there's an option to go for a swim in the lake if you want to. If you don't, then we just do some meditation or just chill out by the lake for 15 minutes while we go for a swim. And then we'll be coming back and having a nice practice, maybe a little bit of yin, I'm not sure yet, but definitely some nidra just to round off the day and just kind of zen out. There'll be a little workshop around the solar plexus as well, actually after the morning practice, where I'm going to talk about a little bit of manifestation and stuff like that as well. So that's the 6th of July. You can find it on the website, Howard Holistic website. Yeah, okay. I hate doing that, but there you go. Lucy was going to throw something at me if I didn't do it, so I do. I keep forgetting to tell everybody about it. That's yeah. Bring a friend. Yeah. It's a Saturday. Saturday, 6th of July, 10 till 5.